Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co., and these are 10 games that I played my way out of liking. And what do I mean by that? Specifically, I mean that I played the game, and I enjoyed it. And then I kept playing, and I enjoyed it. And at some point in the process, whether it was Game 5, Game 17, Game 223, I don't think I have one that high, but whatever point in the process, I went from enjoying the game to not quite enjoying it as much. Basically, these are 10 games I played my way out of liking them. Now this does not include, I'll start off with the games it does not include, not a whole exhaustive list, but types of games. It does not include the Icefaring Guard, a game that I really enjoy, and I just don't think I'll be able to give it the 300 hours it needs, but I do really enjoy it, but I never got to a point where I don't like it. Similarly, it doesn't include games like Assassin's Creed that are incredible experiences, but I do find it hard to come back to those games if I haven't played them a bit and catch up to where I am, meaning those are more logistical things that get in the way of the experience as opposed to the experience itself suffering. And it doesn't even include games like Galaxy Trucker that you may have heard me talk about on the channel in the past, where I played Galaxy Trucker so many times that I no longer own it, but my issue there is not that I don't enjoy it, is that I don't think I'm competitive with other players. I win at Galaxy Trucker, or at least the last times I've played it, I would exclusively win against the people I played it with because I played it too much. These are all examples of games that are not included in this video. Those are games that I've played them a lot. I did eventually get rid of them, but I got rid of them for different reasons, and it wasn't my enjoyment of the experience that suffered because I had played it too much. Before we dive into the games themselves, a note that this channel is sponsored by Allplay. If you head over to allplay.com, you can find a variety of things from the board game tables, the board game shelves, the board game bags, the board game mats, and of course, their board games themselves. They have board games from themselves, as well as a variety of other publishers they work with, so you can find a ton of different games here, some that maybe you'll burn yourself out on if you play them enough. With that, let's start off with number 10. I do have these ranked in order from the lowest BGG ranking all the way up to the highest BGG ranking, I think rating specifically. Starting off with Divinus. I liked my first play of Divinus. I thought it was calm, I thought it was peaceful, it was a tile-laying game. I was excited for the legacy game that was to come, the opportunity for the game to grow and develop, and the problem is, for me, it didn't do that. It didn't grow and it didn't develop. I mean, there were mechanics added, but the gameplay experience didn't elevate. The gameplay experience I was having on Game 5 and Game 6 was the same level of complexity, the same level of strategic enjoyment that I was having on Game 1, and while it was appropriate for Game 1, it was even appropriate for Game 2, I don't think it was appropriate for Game 5 or 6, and it certainly didn't bode well for how things were going to play out the more I played that game. So Divinus for me, unfortunately, is one that I think is a fine game to play once or twice. It was not a fine game to be playing again and again and again. Then we have My Island, which I debated whether My Island should or shouldn't be on this list, because My Island is another legacy game, and we do have one-shot games here, we have legacy games, we have campaign games, but My Island is one that I think my first few plays of it were good. I liked my first few plays, but the more the game went on, the more it added complexity that didn't feel as smoothly interwoven into the experience the way it did with My City. I loved My City to the point that I've played My City like 240 times. Arguably, My City could be on this list, but honestly, I'm still down for another play even now. I would go through another 24 games of My City anytime with you. I like seeing that, like, my most played game of all time just keeps getting more plays ratcheted up. And it's not just about that. The game experience is good. But My Island, for me, as I played it more and more, I found that it went from a game that had the promise of My City to a game that wasn't fulfilling that promise. It got to a point, I don't remember how far I got into, I think like game 15 or 16, but it got to a point in the experience where I was like, you know what, I don't think I'm playing this anymore to actually enjoy it, I think I'm playing it to complete it, and I'd rather do other things with my time than play another 8 games of a game that I'm just playing for the sake of checking off a box of completion. So My Island, unfortunately for me, the more I played it, the less promise I saw, and what started out as promise and potential, it did grow. Unlike Divinus, it did grow for me. The first game was, you know, the first game, and then it elevated as you played more, but I don't know, maybe game 8 or 9, it stopped feeling like it was growing and started feeling like it was just changing and not feeling as smooth as I would like. Coming in at number 8, we have Akropolis. Akropolis I loved when I first played. I gave this a 5 out of 5, although I did say with the caveat that I did see that the game didn't have the variability that games like Calico or Cascadia have, games that are in that similar tile-laying genre. So it was the same game every time I played it, but it was a good same game every time I played it, at least for the first 20, 30 plays. At a certain point in the process, I realized that I had kind of seen the game. And now I never played with the expansion. The expansion might have changed things for me, but I got rid of it before the expansion ever came along, with the just because it wasn't that it's not good anymore. anymore. It's that same engine of what you're doing in the game didn't really iterate significantly. Once I had played out the various strategies, I didn't feel there was anything new to see. And so I was like, okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and continue stacking tiles up, build those purple temples. That's my favorite strategy. And try to get as many points as possible by fully enclosing them because, of course, I'm using the advanced rules modules. The advanced rules modules weren't really a ton of variability, so you can play the basic mode or the advanced mode. I went to the advanced mode pretty quickly, and then from there, again, enjoyed it a lot at first. And once I felt that whenever I dove into a game of Akropolis, I was just doing the same things. I wasn't really thinking through how to approach it differently. I was just doing the same things that I had come to expect as this is the way I'm going to play the game. And that removed the fun of it for me. Again, it's still a good game. I think by the time it left, I had moved it down to a 4 out of 5 rating-wise, but it is one that definitely went down the more I played it. Then we have Super Fantasy Brawl, another one that I loved at first. Super Fantasy Brawl was so much fun. It was such an accessible skirmish game. You basically draft your heroes, or you can pick your heroes however you want. Then you dive into like this arena mode with like this beautiful presentation and a very simple and accessible gameplay where you're just playing these cards either for their effects or for their cores. Like you're activating your cores to play the cards. It's a very straightforward, very fun game, and I loved it when I first played it. The problem is, the same simplicity that made me really enjoy my first plays of it also meant that it didn't hold up as well over time. I had all the content for Wave 1, I had all the content for Wave 2, and then Simon took over the title, which I do wonder what will happen over there with that. But it's one that at first I loved everything about it, and the more I played through it, the more I realized that the heroes, the simplicity of the system meant that the heroes weren't as unique as I would necessarily have liked. And it was too luck dependent on the cards you drew, and the things you were doing were kind of repetitive once you had played the game 10, 12, 14 times. And so it's one that, again, that initial charm after 5 or 6 plays was very much present, but that charm wore off the more I played it, to the point that I started preferring other skirmish games that offered a lot more strategy and depth instead of what this was. Now again, I still think Super Fantasy Brawl has a place for many people, but I don't think it's the kind of game that I would ever recommend going all in on. It's the kind of game I'd say, yeah, get the core box, get a few heroes, enjoy it until you don't, and then move on to games that give you deeper and more rewarding skirmish play. Then we have Hadrian's Wall, another one that's a tough one. This was a 5 out of 5 game for me at first. I loved it. This is so complicated, so nuanced, so intricate as far as how everything meshed together. It was such a rewarding roll-in-my game. It arguably would have been my favorite roll-in-my game at a certain point in time. But then I continued to play it. And the problem with Hadrian's Wall, and I have not played the new one, what's the new one called? Scarab Ray, is that the new one? I have not played the newer one in this line, but I have played Hadrian's Wall, and multiple times, a lot of Hadrian's Wall. And the problem I have with it is that the first half of the game, or at least not necessarily the first half, but I'd say 50%, if not more, of what I do every game feels like it's the things I have to do, the things that I'm going to do every single game, and the general pathways I'm going to work my way up towards. And then from there, it's iterating on that other 50%. And honestly, 50% might be too generous. It might be that it's like 70% is the same thing every time, and the rest is how you iterate on that 30%. So as much as I appreciate the intricacies of that roll-in-my system, again, if you look at these sheets over here, this is the roll-in-my system you're doing. You're checking off these boxes over here. That is a ton of boxes, a ton of ways to do things, but ultimately you kind of go through the same pathways every single time. So it's one that I absolutely adored. I loved this game. And the more I played it, the less that love maintained. The more I started to see the repetitiveness of the engine as opposed to how satisfying the engine could be. I still think it's an excellent game. I just think it's an excellent game that you will play out. Then we have Sky Team. Sky Team is another one that is well loved. This is an 8.1. This is an insanely popular game. How did I rank these? I think I did rank these. I did do this in order of ratings. 8.1. That means everything after this is higher than an 8.1 apparently. I think. Anyway, Sky Team, an 8.1 over here. This is one that I loved when I first played, and I love the way you can iterate on the system, the way you can add different airports, rule modules. I thought that was excellent. The problem is I played it too much. Again, it goes to that same aspect where the more I played the game, the more I felt that I had kind of seen what the game was doing, and the choices you make as far as how you slot the dice started to become a bit repetitive for me, which is interesting because you are playing with other players, so you still have that dynamic aspect of, are you on the same wavelength as you play? Are you vibing as far as the choices you're making? Who's more likely to have that 3 on their die? All those choices are definitely present, but again, I played through every single airport, every single module. I've done so multiple times. I've done so in person. I've done so on BGA. It's a game that is really, really great. But I kind of feel like I've seen what Sky Team is doing, or I see what it has done, and I no longer need to go through the engine, to go through the process of how to best land these planes. Then coming in at number 4, we have Roleplay Adventures. Roleplay Adventures is a phenomenal experience. I highly recommend it. I still think it's a great experience to go on, and the good news is for me, it only started to get a little worn towards the end of the experience. And these are also things that I know they tried to address in the expansions. I say tried only because I never really tried. I never worked with the incorporated rules changes or whatnot, but this is feedback that they know about. But effectively, Roleplay Adventures is a choose-your-own-adventure story that gives you an excellent story to go through, excellent choices to make, and then you're also playing through a dice selection process where you're utilizing these cards, these tools, so to speak, to modify your dice as you go through it to deal with these challenges and combats along the way. I found it a ton of fun. I love the story. It's charm. I don't know if it's like the best written story, but it's a charming story. There's choices you make. There's like choose-your-own-adventure aspect to it. There's adding new tools and things that will help you in the game to manipulate the dice to best help you accomplish those goals. I thought it was excellent. The problem I have is that once you get to a halfway point in the game, halfway-ish, it started to become evident that we would never ever lose anything. We wouldn't lose a combat, we wouldn't lose a challenge, nothing would be lost. We had all the tools we needed to manipulate the dice however we needed, and that meant that at that point, I could choose between stopping playing, I could just do the story, or I could do the story and the game, but the game part was tedious because there was no risk, there was nothing to worry about. There was no tension in the game experience, but just reading through the story felt underwhelming, so we continued to play through and finish the whole arc of it, but it wasn't the same. As soon as I got to a point where I realized everything was a guaranteed win, but we still were going to go through the motions because, you're playing the game, at that point it started to wear out on me. And so that started around halfway through, but by the time it got closer to the last 2 or 3 scenarios, that's where it really was it started halfway through and it became worse and worse the more we went through it. Overall, I think it's an excellent experience. I think it deserves that 8.1 rating. For me, I would just caution going into it that I think you either need to find whatever new rules there are, if there are, or alternatively, you just need to be prepared for the fact that at a certain point, everything's going to become a guaranteed win and understand how you're going to deal with that. Coming in number 3, we have Hoplomachus Victorum, an 8.3. This is another game that has had fixes, which is interesting, by the way. Whenever you have a game that has had fixes to the problems I've experienced, it at least validates that those problems are real, but nonetheless, they were there. I loved Hoplomachus Victorum when I first played it. I actually played it together with Akropolis at a Gen Con 2022, 2023, a while ago, a long time ago Gen Con. I played Akropolis and Hoplomachus Victorum, and both of them were the highlights of the show for me, which makes it sad that both of them have fallen for me. Now again, I still think Hoplomachus is a good time. The problem is, the main issue I have with it is that you're playing through this 40 session arc, 40-ish sessions, whatever it is, as you go through this grind until you eventually go deal with the final boss, and it's just too much of the same thing. It meant that the first time I did it, I was like, this is so fun, but then the second time I was doing it, I was like, I'm gonna go through this again, I'm gonna play through another 40 of these arcs, and it's to the point that they put out this expansion. In the expansion, one of the things they had is Hoplomachus Victorum. I think it's actually called something else, but that's the cute Petsy name, is Hoplomachus Victorum, a way that basically gives you the same Hoplomachus experience, but with less of the grind in that experience, because I think Hoplomachus is a game that does deserve to be played, but it deserves to be played over a much shorter arc before you actually confront the final boss. Otherwise, it's just a very, 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 very long journey, and if you want to play it against multiple signs and whatnot, you have to go through that journey again, and so it's one that my initial review of it was very, very high. And the more time went on, the more I realized I wasn't excited to dive into that journey again just to get to a new sign. Now, I never played properly the whole Hoplomachus Victorum. I only ever covered the prototype of it, and so I don't have that full revised experience. But again, Hoplomachus is one that I loved until I continued to play it and play it and play it, and then it started to wear on me a little bit. Coming in at number 2 is Arena of the Contest, Tanares Adventures. I loved Arena of the Contest when I first played it, and I was excited about Tanares Adventures. This is a game I went all in on. I was excited to get everything. I was incredibly excited for this game, and I still love the game. It's still a game system that I think has so much intricacies to the actual strategy and playing of it. There's so much going on. I love how every adventure you play through is a unique journey. It doesn't feel like they're just repeating the same goals. You really have these different challenges in each adventure you go through. But overall, for me, the thing that held this back is the sheer amount of time. That 45 to 90 minutes on the page, that is a lie. That is a bold-faced lie. I don't think I've ever played a game of Arena of the Contest that's 45 to 90 minutes. My sessions of Arena of the Contest are 3 to 4 hours, and that meant that as I played through it, it started to get to a point where I realized I'm signing up for 3 to 4 hours of doing this thing that would be amazing if it was an hour or 2 hours. It'd be great, but signing up for 3 to 4 hours just felt like a slog. And so I love the game behind it, and every time I have set it up, I have got to the point where I enjoy it. I'm loving the strategy, the choices you make, the characters are so much fun, but it's a game that the more I played through it, I played through the entire campaign on my own, then I started doing a sponsored playthrough, and I just kind of burnt out on it slowly but surely because each time I played was going to be that long session. So I love so much about this game, and it makes me sad. It's when something you love kind of starts to show its wear and tear because you engage with it more, it makes me sad about the experience. I still think Arena of the Contest is a game worth trying, a game worth playing. I think for many people, clearly, again, an 8.3 rating, it clearly has worked for so many, and I still recommend it. I just, maybe diving into a full second playthrough after my first playthrough, like a first campaign arc, that might have been my mistake in this. But overall, I think it's a game you should try. Just go into it knowing that at a certain point, 100 hours in, 200 hours in, I don't know exactly how far I got, it started to become something I was less excited to pull out and table. And then lastly, many of you who have watched the channel know this already, number one is going to be Gloomhaven, or Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, Jaws of the Lion, that whole universe, and it's kind of the same thing. This is a game that for me, I really loved playing through Gloomhaven when I first dove into it. First of all, my first plays of it were way back when, and I was like, I like this, I'm going to play it eventually, and eventually happened years later when I fully dove into the experience, giving it 300 hours across the various Gloomhaven, Frosthaven, Jaws of the Lion universes, both physical and digital. And there's so much good to like here. It's such a strategic game where you level up your characters, the strategic card play, how you build which cards you choose to enter your character's deck. There's so much that is satisfying about the game, but again, it had that aspect of eventually it became a slog. Eventually I became less excited about it, and I was doing it more for the completionist aspect. There becomes a certain point with certain games like this. Not all games, by the way. There are some phenomenal games that I've given 100 plus hours of time and still love them, but some games do show a little bit of wear, and it's going to be person by person. Some people will play Gloomhaven for 300 hours and still love it just as much as they first did. Other people like myself will be like, you know what, this is a lot of game and it doesn't need to be this much game. For me, I love the experience. I wish I had actually finished Gloomhaven. I wish I had ended earlier so I could kind of have that sense of completion. As it is, it got to a point where I realized I was only playing it to complete it and not because I was enjoying it anymore, and for me that was the hard out. Similar with games like Arena, Hoplomachus, Roleplay Adventures. Roleplay Adventures was so close to the end that I did finish it. Every game is different, but when I'm playing the game to check that mark, to check that box and say I did it, as opposed to the idea that I'm enjoying it, that is a big warning sign to step back and figure out what I really want to do with my time. And so these are 10 games that I played so much that I played out my enjoyment of them. In any case, and until next time, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments down below which game was like that for you. What games did you love at first, and then at a certain point, you realized something about it had changed for you? What was that? What game was that? What changed and why? In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.